This week in games, more layoffs hit the industry as we struggle to find a new identity. KOTOR Remake seemingly is dead in the water. Alan Wake 2 developer Remedy switches tactics to avoid live service gaming. And we react to the nominations for 2023 Game Awards. This is the Two Penny Gamescast. What's poppin', players? Welcome back to the Two Penny Gamescast, episode 174. I am your host, Tavin Bothel, here with my good friend and co-host. Say hello to the people, Connor Elliott.
Hello. I intentionally didn't do it on your rhythm, but I easily could have. I even could have gotten the episode number correctly because you said it before the show.
I did say it.
174.
Connor, how are you doing this week?
Well, I had to pay money to get my car fixed.
Oof.
And now it's running even smoother than before. So
that's lovely.
Tit for tat there. Yeah. I mean, other than that, yeah, it's been pretty good. Can't really complain.
Very nice. Very nice.
How about you?
I'm doing well, Connor. You know, I'm busy as all get out, but I'm looking to have a little bit of a break before diving back into the busyness for the Thanksgiving holiday. So I'm excited about that. I gave up a shift at work this week just so I could have some time to myself. I can, play some video games. I can hang out with some family. I can do all the things I need to do. It's gonna be a good week after. We record on Mondays now, and this is, I guess, going live on Tuesdays now. It'll be a good week. And so I'm excited for all of that. But there's plenty here for you to get excited for, ladies and gentlemen, because this is the Two Penny Gamescast. Every week, me and Connor come to you, I guess, Tuesday at 8 a.m. Central Time, youtube.com/@2pennygames, and mainstream podcast services of your choice. We bring you the new news you need to know concerning the video game industry. We each come to you with two topics, two pennies, if you will, and we give you our 2 cents on them. However, this week, a little awkward because of the time difference. So we are covering stuff from like last week that's a little old, but it's still fun, and we want to talk about it, namely the Game Awards. We want to talk about the Game Awards, so stick around for that. Also, make sure you go to the channel and check out the Alan Wake 2 review. It is live on the channel right now. I believe, did it last week. Does that sound right, Connor? Alan Wake 2 last week?
We did, yeah.
Yeah, we had a great conversation about that. Make sure you go and check that out and give that one a watch. And coming up soon, for fans of the Two Penny Game Club, your monthly video game book club, Tomb Raider is about to come. We got about 2 weeks until then. Remember, we took a break from the Two Penny Game Club during the month of October so that we could keep up on the latest and greatest video games such as Spider-Man 2, Alan Wake 2, Mario Wonder, Assassin's Creed Mirage, and one of the ones you
Lords of the Fallen.
That one. There's a lot. We were putting out reviews left and right, man. We were busy in October. Make sure you go check out all of those on the channel right now. Like, subscribe, and share with a friend, and let us know what you think about each of those games down in the comments below. And make sure you stick around December 5th, technically December 4th, if you just watch the breakout review, Tomb Raider 2013 version, and the return of the Two Penny Game Club. It's going to be a very, very exciting time. But that's enough of all of that. Let's get into the news that you need to know. Connor, man, it just happens faster than we can keep up with it, man. There's no keeping up with it at all, so we got to jump right on over to your first penny of the day, your first topic of the day. Would you believe me, Connor, if I said I forgot to set the scene? I forgot to set the scene, Connor. I didn't
Being...
set
for the editing thing.
In the view.
Well, I will
right
keep
here,
talking.
I got it. We're here.
Oh,
Go ahead, take it away. Your first penny, your first topic of the day.
I was about to stall for time, but I wish I could because we are covering yet another instance of layoffs occurring in the games industry. This is from an article by Polygon, specifically Nicole Carpenter. Gaming conglomerate Embracer laid off 900 people as net sales rise. More cuts to come. Swedish mega publisher Embracer Group has laid off more than 900 people as it looks to mitigate its massive $1.3 billion in debt. With these cuts and more to come, Embracer expects to lower that number to below $1 million by the fiscal year's end. The company, which is known for its rapid expansion and industry consolidation, has 15,701 employees as of late September, according to its latest financial report. Embracer expected to sign a $2 billion deal with Saudi Arabia government-funded Savvy Games Group. The deal fell through and forced Embracer to quickly cut its costs due to its aggressive overexpansion and spendy IP acquisition. Embracer expects to continue to reduce its headcount via ongoing restructuring, closures, or buyouts. Massive cuts have already been made at TimeSplitters developer Free Radical Design, Star Trek Online's Cryptic Studios, Tomb Raider's developer Crystal Dynamics, and Myth Force studio Beamdog, as well as full studio closures at Saints Row developer Volition, which just celebrated its 30th anniversary, I know. And newly established Campfire Cabal, among others. Borderlands developer Gearbox Entertainment is just one of Embracer Studios that's reportedly up for sale. Quote, "These are difficult decisions and we do not take them lightly." Multi-billionaire CEO Lars Wingefors wrote shortly before pointing out Embracer is, quote, "focused on maximizing shareholder value." He continued, "For me personally, it is crucial that the program is carried out with compassion, respect, and integrity." Alongside the job cuts, Embracer has also shut down development on 15 main unannounced projects from Amplifier, Free Mode, Gearbox, Plyon, Saber, and THQ Nordic. Perhaps because of these cuts, Embracer reported a 13% increase in its net sales year over year for its second quarter, alongside all of the bad news. Embracer's confirmation of its hundreds of job losses comes in a week where each day has brought the announcement of another layoff. Amazon Games, 505 Games owner Digital Bros Entertainment, Congregate, and Humble Bundle have all laid off workers this week. More than 7,000 people, per an industry tracker, have been laid off so far in 2023. Particularly, Amazon cuts more than 180 jobs in gaming division. I'm pulling that from a CNBC article by Ashley Caput. It's really just more of the same that we've been seeing, for this entire year. And when some of the best games in recent, history, we've had one of the best years of gaming in recent history, and yet it's layoff after layoff after layoff. And it's kind of annoying talking about this, not just because of the human impact that these stories have caused, but also just it's the same exact thing over and over again, where these studios sometimes, especially in the case of Embracer Group, make money at the end of the year, have people on their board who make millions and millions and millions of dollars, and yet the people who work on the games, who actually make them their money and give us the games that we like to play, are the ones who get the short end of the stick. Especially when you consider that this is all due to a deal not going through. And the people who make the games, they have no choice on whether that happens or doesn't happen. It's those executives that I just brought up. And even though they failed to make a deal, and it may not be entirely their fault, they certainly are putting all of the onus on the workers, as we generally do see in this industry whenever some kind of deal goes through, or also in the case of Embracer Group, when they acquire a variety of studios and then end up axing people from those studios. It's basically just like clockwork at this point. We keep covering the same exact stories with different names attached to it, and it's just not going away anytime soon. And it's probably going to go into next year because clearly the game sales don't matter, as, like I said, games have been doing very well. I mean, they do well in general, but this year in particular, they've had some real big hits, and yet it just doesn't matter. It never matters. Frankly, it really is annoying having to talk about this every single week, and it feels even more pathetic that I have to say the same exact things over and over and over again, and it just having no water, holding no water.
It is important to keep continuously saying this and to keep this narrative going. These corporate heads have millions of dollars. They are taking, at least from what we can tell, no pay cuts. And how many jobs could you save if you took a pay cut? How many? What would that perception of your company look like if you took a pay cut and said, "Hey, man, I tried. Yeah, we had to let 300 people go, but it would have been 1,000 if I hadn't taken a 20% off of my pay cut at the end of the year," or something like that. And it's just impossibly frustrating to see all of these developers who are so talented and putting out so many great games, and then having all of their work just be tarnished because some CEO, some money-grubbing COO or something, was chasing trends and forcing your development team that may not have the talent for a specific gameplay model to go after that gameplay model. And then now we're you look at Crystal Dynamics and their last game, Marvel's Avengers. Crystal Dynamics is not a game studio that should be putting out a game that was like Marvel's Avengers. That is not where their talent lies. Their talent lies in narrative-based action adventure games, like the Tomb Raider series, which was a really good, two-piece of 1+1, or between Tomb Raider 2013 and Rise of the Tomb Raider. We're gonna have a review for 2013 out here in a few weeks, and we've already recorded it, and I'll say now what I said there is that this studio is talented. They are doing a lot of good stuff here. And I had critiques of the game itself with a 2023 view on it a decade later, but for the time that game was super good. Like, it was super solid and fun. And now you just sit back and you look and you see, because of the judgment of these selfish, greedy corpos, we're left in the wreckage of their bad choices. And what do they have to do to answer for this? Nothing, man. And they can sit here and pretend like, oh, they're so affected all they want, but y'all still sitting on a pile of cash while, John Adams over at Crystal Dynamics needs to figure out what he's doing for rent next month. Mary Sue over at Amazon just got cut, and she doesn't know how she's going to pay for her surgery now. And now we're just sitting here, and people are losing their livelihoods over this because of decisions you made, not because of their performance. More often than not, their performance is outperforming your expectations of their performance, and you're letting them down. It's disgusting.
Last week when we covered one of the layoffs, it all blurs together. I can't even remember the specific company that was doing layoffs that week. I brought up that the key to solving this issue is to give more powers to the worker, which comes in the form of unionization. It's one of the best ways we have to give them more bargaining power when it comes to things like this. Because as we pointed out, this is at the core of it because a deal fell through. And it kind of falls in the face of the people who say, oh, well, we shouldn't unionize. All you have to do is do your job, do it well, and you don't have to worry about your job security at all. Well, they didn't do anything wrong. It was something that was made, it was decisions made entirely out of their hands, and now they're paying for it. The only way that they get any kind of bargaining power is if they have a union. And clearly, we've always seen the one of the reasons we've seen the result being that we have just these massive layoffs. In the case of Bungie, they did theirs right before benefits ended, so they lost all of that.
So fucking gross.
It's incredibly disgusting. And I believe from their statement, they were saying the same exact things as these guys are saying. Oh, it's a tough decision. It was hard to make, but we had to make it. Well, then you just see, in the case of that being that they cut off their benefits right before they were fired, and in the case of this, where it's clearly their fault that these cuts had to be made, and there's no bargaining at all going on. It's just, yep, you get axed, because they don't feel any negative reception to this. They'll get angry people like us online, say how bad you are and how greedy and how much of a piece of shit you are, but they don't care. They're all focused on money, and when there's no recompense, you don't get. There's no bad thing that happens to you for axing these workers. It's just basically another day at the office for them, and unfortunately, we'll just keep on seeing that until they unionize. And there's something that I'd have to do more research on, and I'll just bring it up so other people can look up for themselves, which is a method of it's called sectoral bargaining, where it's I don't know if it's an alternative to unions, but it's another way they might be able to argue for more benefits or more conditions on them being laid off. Like I said, I won't go into it too much. I recommend you, as I will be, looking that up more, because at this point we just need to start throwing out solutions. Like I said, we're two people on the internet. We'll just rage at them, shake our fist at the sky, but at least we can come up with some other idea besides just unionization to why this stuff could, how this stuff could be solved. But they're certainly not going to take the initiative to prevent this kind of stuff from happening, because they just keep on doing it, and they won't stop until we force their hand, until the workers force their hand.
Workers' rights are human rights. Connor, speaking of bad decisions laid on the feet of developers by upper hands, that was a transition. We have more news on the Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic remake. It is reportedly dead. This is a article from Inside Gaming that we're pulling from Mike Straw. The Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic remake is dead. At least that's what Giant Bomb's Jeff Grubb had to say on Friday morning during his Game Mess Mornings show. Quote, I just want to clear it up. This game is not being worked on right now, Grubb said around the 57-minute mark. Quote, just full stop, this game is not being worked on in any way at any studio. Originally announced back in 2021, the Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic remake has been through development turmoil from the start. It was first in development by Aspyr Media before Embracer Group shifted the game over to Saber Interactive in August 2022. During his show, Grubb also mentioned that the game may have even been moved away from Saber Interactive as well. Since the announcement of moving away from Aspyr Media, nothing has been said by anyone involved about the state of the game. The only thing that has happened recently is the scrubbing of social media and YouTube by Sony, removing mentions of the game. Even during quarterly earnings calls, Embracer Group failed to confirm that the game was still making progress. Quote, I noticed that anything I say to this becomes a headline, so that is my only comment, end quote, said Embracer CEO Lars Wingefors. Said during the most recent earnings call on Thursday. Insider Gaming has reached out to Embracer Group and Saber Interactive for comment on the status of the game. Those requests have yet to receive a response as of publishing. And I mean, kind of off the same thing, where Embracer, you were making a bunch of deals, you were buying a bunch of IP, and none of it was really making any sense. This is a deal that didn't really make a lot of sense to me, even from the jump. I was excited to hear about a Knights of the Old Republic remake. I've played Knights of the Old Republic in 2020 during the pandemic. I love Knights of the Old Republic. It's one of my favorite RPGs that I've ever played. It's the best Star Wars game ever made, in my opinion, and it needs to be treated with a level of care and a level of love and a level of talent that I don't know if Aspyr Media had. And giving them, because Aspyr is pretty much just a porting house for other games, namely a bunch of Star Wars games, Knights of the Old Republic, Knights of the Old Republic 2, I think Star Wars Republic Commando or something, and then a couple other smaller things, maybe it was Dark Forces or something, I forget. But yeah, they're a porting house, and those ports are okay, a little glitchy, not the best ports that they could have been. I just don't know if Aspyr was the right team for this choice. Moving over to Saber Interactive, who has done some good work in the past, some, sort of middle of the road type stuff. Again, like, it just didn't seem like we had a good plan for this. It felt like a money call from the jump, which, granted, this is the type of money call that I'm into, but, like, let's do it the right way, and it doesn't seem like they were doing it the right way. And now that Embracer's having all of their money problems because they keep doing things the wrong way outside of the Star Wars remake, this was an inevitable one. This is one that was barely getting off the ground, and it just didn't make sense to continue development on it. I believe Jeff Grubb when he says, hey, nobody's working on it right now. I think he's heard things. He's got industry insiders that allow him to kind of get the jump on these things and have his ear to the ground on how this is all working out. So yeah, it doesn't look like we're getting a KOTOR remake anytime soon, which is sad because that's one of the greatest games ever made. And I'd like to see it re-envisioned with today's spectacle.
Yeah, it's hard enough to make a game without it changing hands, and so it's almost it's a pretty high likelihood that this would have been canceled, and unfortunately, yeah, like Jeff Grubb said, probably is the case. I mean, there's not much to say about it because we hadn't seen a single damn thing about it, but it was one that I remember that when it got announced, people were super excited because, as you said, I haven't played it myself, but KOTOR is considered one of the best games by many people, and it's unfortunate to see it go by the wayside. I don't think they deserve the goodwill, so I'll just blame Embracer Group for it. That sounds good.
And it's one of these things that it's like, I mean, let's break it down. We would all like a full-blown remake, sort of with the gameplay of like a Final Fantasy VII remake. That kind of makes sense to me. KOTOR had sort of an active time battle-ish system in it, and to see it kind of given that love that 7 Remake got would be really cool. Obviously not taking the risks that 7 Remake is taking. I don't understand how you would even do that with KOTOR. It makes sense for the world of Final Fantasy VII. It wouldn't make sense here. But like the gameplay styling of how that sort of active combat RPG. Active time battle, but like still different than the ATB from however you want to describe that. The
tactics
no,
RPG.
No. Tactics RPGs are like your Fire Emblems, Connor.
Yeah, I know it is, but it occupies a middle space between those two things.
I think it's more of a middle space between just your regular turn-based RPGs and your action RPGs.
There's got to be a name for that kind of combat system. Let me look it up.
I mean, regardless, the KOTOR would have loved that type of update. But I, as a fan, would have taken just a visual update. A real pretty version of the same game would have been great. Probably update some of the mini games in it. A lot of those mini games not great. not really fun to do. The racer mini game was my memory. Is the racing mini game was pretty bad. But combat still for the most part held up. Little repetitive, but it was still good. And of course, just that story and that narrative are the main draws to that game. And it would have been really nice to explore, Dantooine with new models, or to see these beloved characters with new models and so forth, and to really flush out seeing Kashyyyk in modern graphics fidelity would have been amazing. But yeah, it doesn't seem like we're getting this anytime soon, if at all. I would not be surprised if, depending on who holds the rights for Knights of the Old Republic, if we still see a remake happen at some point. It's just not this, and it's not going to be this version.
This is the best I can find, is that the combat's considered round-based combat. I guess that's round-based, time is divided into discrete rounds, and combatants attack and react simultaneously.
Are you talking KOTOR, or are you talking?
Yeah, KOTOR.
Oh, okay.
I haven't played it.
That makes sense.
Oh,
I thought you were on 7 Remake. I was like, that doesn't make sense for 7 Remake. But yeah, KOTOR, that's a decent way to describe it. It's round-based type thing, yeah. Where like everyone kind of plays their moves all at once. It's like quote-unquote turn-based, but like if you're not reacting fast enough, you can miss your turn type thing.
Kind of like is it in a way kind of like Dragon Age Origins or Final Fantasy 12? You might not be aware of Final Fantasy 12's gameplay.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't play enough of Dragon Age Origins to be able to tell you, but I mean, it would make sense. The likeness should be there because, BioWare.
Yeah.
So that likeness of combat things should still be there. Dragon Age Origins, probably a little more action focused still than KOTOR was, because Origins obviously came later. But this one, yeah, it was probably closer in that realm. Just kind of, I would say imagine it like OG Final Fantasy VII with the active time battle of that, except everybody goes at once.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just every round everybody goes all the time. So yeah, but it's a good game, and I think it holds up mechanically for the most part. There's some tweaks and things that you should do to kind of fix it up and polish it up, but like for the most part, I think that game still holds up, and it's a shame we're not getting a cooler looking version of it than now, because it's a little janky, like especially moving from gameplay to cutscene. It's got some jank to it, but a phenomenal game nonetheless, and still a fun time for fans today.
Jank is good.
I like some jank. I can deal with some jank. Jank is fun.
Depends on the kind.
Connor, speaking of a little bit of jank, let's talk about this new Remedy game. Moving on to your second topic of the day and your second penny. Take it away, brother.
Well, we are tapping right into the vein of Remedy itself, from their, I guess, PR site where they release all their information.
Yeah, it's a blog post.
Yeah. Remedy Entertainment plans to reboot codename Vanguard to a premium game with a strong cooperative multiplayer component. Remedy Entertainment PLC today announces a reboot of its cooperative.
There you go.
Yes.
Good job.
Free-to-play multiplayer game project codenamed Vanguard. Hereafter, Kestrel, as a premium game with a strong cooperative multiplayer component. Remedy signed a global agreement with Tencent as its publishing partner on December 28th, 2021 to develop Vanguard. Due to uncertainties in creating a successful game to the rapidly changing free-to-play market and associated risks, the parties have discussed a new direction for the game project, which will be given the new codename Kestrel. The reboot comes as the project has reached the end of its proof-of-concept phase, and after Remedy and Tencent had time to evaluate the project's status and its next steps. The project will return to a concept phase. Part of the former Vanguard development team will move to work on Remedy's other ongoing projects, while the core leadership and select members of the development team of Kestrel will focus on the project's new direction from the concept stage onwards to create a premium game with a strong cooperative multiplayer component. The new experience will lean more into Remedy's core strengths and be built on many of the features, assets, and themes already designed for Vanguard. Quote, "We have made some great strides in free-to-play and multiplayer development in Vanguard. After a lot of careful consideration, we believe that taking on a new direction where the game will be built more around Remedy's core competences? competences is the right way to go. Yes, we are creating another distinct Remedy game with Tencent's continued support in making a great cooperative multiplayer experience, said Taro Virtala, the CEO of Remedy Entertainment. I'm really happy about this. You know, it's a lot more safer than making this the venture into the free to play market, because obviously Remedy has been known for making Alan Wake, Control, Quantum Break, and then now recently Alan Wake 2. They've been talking about making Control 2, and this was the next thing on their their new games list. And they should stick to what they know. It's kind of reminds me of Crystal Dynamics when they went to work on Avengers. Obviously, they had been making single player action adventure games. We talked about that earlier in the show, and then they transitioned to this new style of game, and it didn't play all that well. You know, it's kind of the risks that you can expect from these kinds of things. Unfortunately, in that case, it's probably contributed to the recent layoffs that they've gone through as a result of the game not doing so great. And so it's good to see that Remedy's kind of getting ahead of any risk like that, especially after Alan Wake 2 has done as well as it has, which possibly could have influenced the decision to do this. Because Alan Wake 2 is, to my knowledge, it's made a lot of money. It's definitely got the critical acclaim. And so, hey, why not make your other game that you're developing while it's still early on change to this thing that it still occupies that space of doing something new. I would love a cooperative multiplayer game. A lot of games nowadays obviously more or less focus on the competitive side of things, where you're trying to beat them in other players in online matches. And so I'm really interested to see what form this game takes place in, because I'm assuming it's going to play like Control, but be modified to allow for multiple people to play it and not be too easy. Because I'm assuming if you put, as someone who hasn't played Control, putting that kind of gameplay and just allowing everybody to be as crazy powerful as that protagonist is, you'd really have to amp up the difficulty to make it work.
I think it'd make more sense to have more of an Alan Wake gameplay loop for a multiplayer cooperative type thing going on. That makes more sense to me, is to have more leanings into that, because Control is straight up a power fantasy. You've got mad powers and mad guns and so forth, and I guess you could split that up and make it work. We'll have to wait and see. The rumor is that this is in the Alan Wake universe, which means it's also in the Control universe, and that's what we're talking about. I want to give props, one, of course, to Remedy for for having the balls to go back to the publisher and say, hey, let's read the room, and let's realize that this is probably not a good idea. We have some proof of concept stuff going on. We know what to do. We know what we want to do. But it's probably not going to fit this model. And as much as I don't like to do it, I'll give a little bit of props to Tencent for at least, listening and being like, yeah, okay, yeah, let's restructure this. Let's figure it out. Let's, move some timelines back to make sure that we can pick the safest route here. And this is probably the safest route here. Full priced, or maybe a discounted price, multiplayer game, strong cooperative fields to it. I think off of the back of Alan Wake 2 and Control, which are beloved games, I think Remedy has bought enough cachet with the gaming audience in order to be like, hey, we are trying something new here. We want you to come with us on this, and unfortunately, we have to ask for a price to jump in on that. Hopefully, it means that the game doesn't live or die by its player base, and that you can keep it going, and it's not a games as service, live service model, and it's just a game that they put out. Here's a multiplayer co-op game that you can put out. Maybe there's some single player offerings to it if you don't have enough friends to jump in on it with you. But I think this is a much stronger plan than to do the free-to-play model, especially with Remedy.
Yes.
Remedy, you wouldn't 100% know it by Alan Wake standards, but Remedy really does understand gameplay mechanics and game feel and what it feels to play a really good game. And I think they are sort of in a prime right now, coming off of Control, coming off of Alan Wake 2. And I'm just so excited to hear what they have next. I mean, even people who didn't love, like, Quantum Break is not up to that level, but people it wasn't like a hated game. It wasn't a bad game. It just, there were things about it that people didn't care for. Go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to bring up another example. Probably better than Crystal Dynamics is Arcane Studios. They're ones who have made these high quality single player games. The moment they go into a free to play game, a live service game that had a bunch of support from Microsoft, that had a bunch of attention heaped on it, Now, of course, Microsoft kind of mismanaged it by
That's
not giving them enough
that's
time.
not a live service game.
Redfall wasn't going to be a live service game?
No.
What the fuck were they going to continue to do?
It's just some updates and some expansions probably, but probably
Jesus
not
Christ.
anymore. Yeah.
Well, that even
Redfall's not a live service game. It's just a co-op.
Damn.
Game.
Really?
It's just a co-op game. You buy it $60.
Yeah, well, it failed, and it's kind of leaning more into that multiplayer space, that sudden shift into a multiplayer space, from their single player games. If Remedy wants to go later in the future and actually dedicate themselves to making a free to play game, I think it's a good first step in the water to do one that's cooperative, but one that's still the more mainline game that they're typically used to making. I think it's basically on every level, this is a really smart move. It's kind of giving me more and more hope about what Remedy's going to be like in the future.
It really is just safer because, yes, it is true. A free-to-play game, you have more people probably jumping in first day, and you can make a bigger splash that way. And you have the opportunity to make a really big splash by going free-to-play in that way. But at the same time, having a bunch of players come through does not mean a bunch of money is coming through. In fact, it could cost you money because all these people are downloading your game and so forth, and you have to pay for servers and so forth. Whereas on this one, there is a price to entry, which, does limit you. You're not getting as many 12, 13-year-olds going in, but you are getting, I would argue, probably just as many adults who probably would have tried the game out anyway because now, they've got the money to spend. And if the quality is there, which it probably will be, speaking of Remedy, speaking of them trying to make the smart moves here, and they're past their proof of concept stage. This means they have an idea. They have the beginnings of a gameplay loop that they think works. They have the beginnings of world design that they think works. And now it's just flushing out those ideas and building out their worlds and building out a gameplay loop and fine-tuning it to the addictive levels of a Control or something like that. I think what we have here is Remedy's take on maybe like a Left 4 Dead game or something like that. That would be kind of cool to me. I would definitely play something like that. Connor, just imagine it. You and me running through. We're running through the dark place, man. And like I've got the flashlight. You got the gun. You know what I'm saying? Maybe Phil's got some flashbangs or something. We got to work together to get through some dark monsters or something like that. That'd be kind of cool.
It would be cool. I still do think they're going to go more the Control route. Rather than, because from what we were kind of understanding, it seemed like it was they did a promo image that seemed like it was being held in like the Federal Bureau of Control area. So I think I really do think they're going to go more than that route.
I could see a world where that kind of works too. I'm thinking of somebody who's a little heavily armored tank character, maybe one that's a little more light on their feet, got some powers, maybe one that's focused on weaponry, a healer, something like that. I don't know. So yeah, I could see how some different class-based stuff could kind of work, or maybe they just continue that gameplay loop from Control and build out a level design in a world that works with cooperative multiplayer. I don't know. We're too early to tell, but there's some interesting ideas here. Good on Remedy for knowing that, hey, it would be better if we went the more traditional route, and good on Tencent, I guess. To as good as Tencent can be for listening and saying, yeah, you're probably right. Let's do it your way. That gets me more excited than hearing the words free to play live service, yada 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 yada. As we look at the inevitable dead on arrival Suicide Squad game, that like there's just no saving that one. Even if their delay comes out and the game is good, the ship has already sailed on Suicide Squad. That game's gonna flop, and that sucks because Rocksteady's really talented. And again, it's another example of a talented studio jumping into a service model that doesn't fit for them. This is closer to what you should be doing and doing it right. Now, maybe if you build success off of this, maybe you can turn the game free to play. Maybe the game can become free to play later on down the line as we figure out a live service model that works for it. But let's ask for some of that investment back up front, and then later on, reverse it. Rocket League is a great example of that. $20 for Rocket League. Granted, they did have a boost from PlayStation Plus by being a free game on PlayStation Plus for a month to get a fan base started. And then everybody bought the game. And then a few years later, they were like, hey, it's just free to play. Just buy the Battle Pass, all that type of stuff. And it worked out great for them. Rocket League's still going strong to this day. So, there's examples of this model working in a myriad of different ways. Just as many examples of it not working, but that is all dependent upon the quality of the game, the level of marketing, and public interest, which you can't control public interest.
No, you cannot. Well, you can. You can influence it, but you can't control it. That's what PR.
That's what PR is doing. The marketing team and making sure you're doing it right on that. Which we've seen examples of it working and not working. I think it'll work this time. I feel like Alan Wake 2 was marketed fairly well.
Yeah, I mean, it was able to make a story without having to play the first one from back in 2010. So, and they, they didn't put that out.
That's narrative design and writing and so forth. But like, Alan Wake 2 showed up at the right conferences and showed up at the right showcases and had the right amount of demos and preview for us to know what that is. Showed up at Xbox, showed up at PlayStation. It showed up at all the big boys next to all the big games and had impressive demos to boot with it.
Yeah, let's hope this comes out good.
Let's hope.
More interesting.
Connor, moving on to our final topic of the day and my final penny. Game Awards nominations are out. Connor, let's sit back. Let's cut real quick. Let's get ourselves some brewskis and talk about some video games.
Tradition. It's a tradition.
We got to do it. BRB. 1 second. Get in the fucking chair. All right, here we go. And we're cutting back. There we go. We got some brewskis here. We poured out, as some longtime viewers of the podcast know, I work for BJ's, the company BJ's. I'm a bartender there. And they have their annual Grand Cru holiday drink. Here we go. And I got some of that right here in some Grand Cru glasses, not from the current year. They're on their 24th year. This is 21st year glasses that I was able to grab from work and so forth. So, Connor, cheers to you. Grand Cru. Oh, it's good.
It's good beer. As someone who doesn't drink beer all that much,
yeah,
I do it at social functions. But as far as taste of beer goes, this is good. It's very
good one. It's a good one.
Yeah,
it's crisp.
Almost as good as Dos Equis. Dos Equis is as good as it is with a lime.
It's a much better beer than Dos Equis.
You're right. It has a higher alcohol content.
Dos Equis is my cheap, bullshit beer that I buy, when I just want a quick 24 pack and I want to, crush a couple of bottles or whatever, so forth. But this is much high. 10.5?
No.
10.5, I believe, alcohol content.
I keep thinking it's 14% because you, the guy whose job it is to serve drinks, misinformed
at one point. Yeah, I believe it's 10.5 ABV, but it's a great drink, so I fully recommend it. Connor, let's get into the nominees here. The Game Awards premiering December 7th. Check back on our December 4th episode, or 5th, December 5th episode, when that goes live. We will be predicting the winners of the Game Awards just days before. It's going to be a great time. Phil will be here joining us. We're going to have a long conversation about all of it. It's going to be a good time. Make sure you check that episode out. But we're going to go ahead. We're going to scroll through some of these nominees in categories, and we're going to talk about it. Connor, let's go ahead and just start right there with the big one. Game of the Year. We have Game of the Year, recognizing a game that delivers the absolute best experience across all creative and technical fields. Nominated are Alan Wake 2, Remedy Entertainment; Baldur's Gate 3, Larian Studios; Marvel's Spider-Man 2, Insomniac Games; Resident Evil 4, Capcom; Super Mario Bros. Wonder, Nintendo; The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, Nintendo.
So this is a good encapsulation of all of the games that came out this year that were just stellar. This has been one of the best years of gaming, and in a certain world, any of these could win. I do think there's certain ones that have a leg up over some others, particularly Resident Evil 4. I think that kind of has one of the least likely chances of winning amongst this list. And that's saying something, because Resident Evil 4 was one of the best games that came out this year. I personally think better than some of the games on this list. The big other analysis that I can give is the only ones that I don't think should win, and this is going to be a little bit of my bias coming out.
Here we go with your bullshit.
Mario Wonder, because it's a
No,
Mario game.
it's
as
great.
good as it can be.
Stop it.
I'm not going to deny that. I'm not going to. But my entire criticism of Mario is it's Mario. You know what you're getting with Mario games, even if it's a particularly good one. And I think when you have things like Alan Wake 2, which does so many interesting things with its narrative and with its visuals, Baldur's Gate 3 being, doing things that other games wish they could do, breaking new ground, Spider-Man 2 being Spider-Man 2, one of the biggest games this year, Resident Evil 4 being one of the greatest remakes that have ever been made. Just compared that to Mario, it's great, but it's Mario.
You don't know what you're talking about here, man.
I do know it.
Mario
I do know what I'm talking
about. One of the best 2D
about.
platformers of all time already. So, it's awesome. It's one of the best 2D Marios ever made. You can be like, you're getting, you know what you're getting. Bro, play 3 levels of Mario Wonder and tell me that you knew what you were getting when you started that game.
Challenge accepted.
It is impossible. We're gonna do that. Accepted. You know what? We're gonna fucking do it tonight. I'm gonna record you, motherfucker. You're gonna sit here and play the opening levels of Mario Wonder, and you're gonna fucking have a good time.
I might not do it tonight. I have Baldur's Gate 3 to play, Tavin.
Yeah,
I need to beat Baldur's Gate 3. But the other bit, I'll finish up quickly, that I don't think deserves to win, though it'd be fine if it did, is Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. It's done. Wow. Yeah, I know. Because here's the thing about it. It improved upon the original game greatly. And it's in the way you can explore the world with its building mechanics, the temples that you're able to go and do the puzzles there.
Made it actually fun.
Yeah, it's well, shut up. It's one of the it's some of the best puzzles in games. But at its core, it is Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. I mean, it is Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. Its gameplay, its world structure, with some tweaks to it, are very similar. And when you have games, like I said, that are breaking new ground, particularly Alan Wake 2 and Baldur's Gate 3, and the ones that do, and they do it very well, I think that Tears of the Kingdom just doesn't make as much of a splash due to it being so similar to Breath of the Wild, particularly in the way that the gameplay works, in how you move, how you do combat. And I said I love Tears of the Kingdom. You can go watch a review of it, me and Phil particularly. And Tavin's late review to it.
I got a solo review. Yeah.
He does have a solo review.
Someone say the ultimate 2-penny games review.
Some might say that, but not. Yeah, that guy. Of course, you would say it. But overall, I just think there's other games more deserving on this list, despite all of them being, perfectly acceptable if they win.
I'm with you for the most part. This is a great slate of games. I think all 6 are fantastic. I think these are great picks. I'm surprised to see Alan Wake 2 here. I think that's a little bit of recency bias, and I think it has the least opportunity to win personally. Mm-hmm. Followed behind that is Resident Evil 4, not because I think it's undeserving, but just because there is a conversation about remakes happening and remakes being nominated in the industry and so forth. And just the gaming sphere, people are talking, it's a remake. Did it really deserve to be nominated here? I think, yes, absolutely. You play Resident Evil 4 remake and then you play the OG Resident Evil 4. Those are 2 different games. Different art styles, way more detail in Resident Evil 4. That's going to happen. The game is 20 years, old.
Different tone, though?
Huh?
Completely different tone to the original
completely different tone, completely different art style, shadowing, lighting, story has been rewritten to kind of fit the tone that it wants to go for. The gameplay, yes, it's still an over-the-shoulder, a third-person shooter, but they play completely differently. The level design is completely different. All the things that are hard about video games and what makes a good video game is completely different. You can argue, it's from the bones of the original game. Every third-person over-the-shoulder game is working off the bones of Resident Evil 4. Alan Wake 2 is a Resident Evil 4 clone. Like, in a year where Resident Evil 4 remake happened, it's the lesser Resident Evil 4 clone. Like, RE4 is one of the best Resident Evil games ever made, and this is coming from someone who doesn't love Resident Evil 4 like that. I really liked Remake. It's not my favorite Resident Evil, but it's so high quality that it's a top 3 Resident Evil game.
It's my favorite Resident Evil.
And that's fine. That's totally valid. That's 100% valid. I just prefer more the Metroidvania, exploring a location type Resident Evils, RE2, RE1 type things, as opposed to your more action-adventure styling of Resident Evil 4. But Resident Evil 4 is still a phenomenal, phenomenal game that was really, really impressive this year. Going past that, I don't expect Mario Wonder's gonna win. Even though I am in I'm standing very firmly against Connor here. Mario Wonder is one of the best video games of the year, and it deserves its spot wholeheartedly, and it still has a chance to win. But to me, this is a 3-horse race between Zelda, Baldur's Gate, and Spider-Man, and even then, it's probably closest between Baldur's Gate and Zelda. Connor, I understand what you're saying when you say it's more Breath of the Wild. That is why I think Baldur's Gate 3 is going to win at the end of the day, because Baldur's Gate 3 is new-ish. I mean, not a new series by any stretch of the imagination, but it's new ideas. It's a new step forward. It entered the mainstream in a way that got people really, really excited. It's an underdog story from Larian Studios about how, they came from, what is it called? Open... like a beta thing. I forget what it's called.
Open early access.
Early access. They came from early access, and they came out and showed the world what it means to put out a game of this caliber, and not buckle underneath all of the annoying gaming trends of the day, and that should be commended. I think people who are voting are going to fight harder for Baldur's Gate 3 to win than a Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. And the only reason I don't think Marvel Spider-Man 2 is going to be in that same running is because at the end of the day, it was more Marvel's Spider-Man. You did get a lot of very similar gameplay loops and world design and mission design in it. I think they stepped up their game 100%. I think Marvel Spider-Man 2 clears the first game by far, and I think its story is one of the best narratives of the year. Out of these 6 contestants, Marvel Spider-Man 2 has the best story, hands down. Even with my limited time with Baldur's Gate 3, I can say that Marvel Spider-Man 2 is a very well-written game with very, very good characters in it, and very impressive what they were able to do with that, even though it's not one of my favorite stories ever in Spider-Man lore, but it's really, really freaking good. And it's a storied developer, Insomniac, at the top of their game. This deep into the game, you're talking 20, 25 years of game development for them to still be putting out great hits like this and to just see them constantly getting better and better and better. Bro, who else from that era is still kicking ass like that? Like, even Naughty Dog has taken a step back, and they're like, you only get a Naughty Dog game a generation at this point. Like, Insomniac has 3 new games out for the PlayStation 5. 4 if you count the remaster. And that's hella impressive that they were able to do all of that in such a short time, and all of them be so high quality, and all of them just get better and better and better as we go along. Insomniac's one of the best in the world to do it right now.
I will say, Tavin, 2 points particularly. The first of all, as far as like old studios that have continued to be as relevant as Insomniac, 2 ones off the top of my head are Santa Monica with their God of War franchise, and From Software, who had the biggest glow up, if you're comparing all that kind of stuff. That's a side point.
From Software wasn't putting out hits in the PS2 era.
It was not.
Sony Santa Monica Studios fell off in the PS3 generation. Next.
This is all the precursor, Tavin, to you saying why it's not going to win, and then only provided to give it the more praise than you gave Mario Wonder or Legend of Zelda.
I said because it's just more Zelda. It's more Spider-Man. It's more Spider-Man.
I only bring that up because our channel could speak for itself. The overwhelmingly most viewed video that we did on TikTok that you edited was on Spider-Man 2. And we did
200,000 views, baby. We did it.
Yeah. and no other game has done that much for our channel. And I think that's indicative of the kind of attention this has got. I mean, obviously it was popular on TikTok. I don't use TikTok, but I use Twitter. It was all over the place on Twitter. Now, so is Baldur's Gate 3. So I really do, and since this is voted on by the players, I really think it's not between.
No,
I think what
players get 10% of the vote.
They get 10% of the vote.
Yeah.
Well,
the others go to the other gaming websites, the sites, the IGNs, the Kinda Funnies, the GameSpots, etc.
Yeah, but I still think that Marvel Spider-Man 2 has made so much of an impact on the general populace that easily leaks over into the critics, the people who are actually going to be deciding these votes. Because I mean, they was getting 10s and 10s and 10s and 9s and whatnot. I still think it is highly, and I think it really is a matter of Baldur's Gate 3, Spider-Man 2, and Legend of Zelda, because it's Zelda, and it made that big of a splash.
Yeah, I mean, if I were like, to me, it's just so clearly Baldur's Gate 3, but I do think Zelda and Spider-Man are still in this conversation. But I think there's a lot of circles that, vote down on Spider-Man because how could I put this in a way that makes sense and eloquently? I don't know if I can. Marvel's Spider-Man 2 is more Spider-Man, more than Tears of the Kingdom is more Breath of the Wild. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. But
yeah.
See, that was my thought, because I haven't played Spider-Man 2, which is why I said nothing on it. It looks the same, but I haven't played it, so I'm not going to make that snap decision. But I will do that with Mario, because I'm the Mario slash platformer critic. Hater is a strong word.
You're a hater.
Hater.
You're a hater.
No. I'm a hater.
Shovel Knight was better than Yakuza 0. We all fucking know it.
No, it was not.
It deserves to be in the top 5. What are we doing?
You guys overblow that story. You and Phil both. You guys acted like it was a masterpiece written from God himself.
It is a masterpiece.
It's not a masterpiece. It's a good story. It's not a master. Shovel Knight came out years ago. I'm talking about now.
Connor, let's move on.
I know.
Let's move on. Let's hit some other categories here. Let's not spend so much time on the one though. Are we in agreement? Baldur's Gate 3 probably taking home the gold though.
I want to say so, but I feel like my bias of what I see on social media and what I feel are kind of making me think that's I mean,
I don't have that bias. I don't have that bias, and I think Baldur's Gate 3 is easily taking it home. Like, it's not even really a conversation. But Best Game Direction, awarded for outstanding creative vision and innovation in game direction and design, we have Alan Wake 2, Remedy Entertainment, Baldur's Gate 3, Larian Studios, Marvel Spider-Man 2, Insomniac Games, Super Mario Wonder, Nintendo, Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, Nintendo. Pretty much the same, except missing Resident Evil. This one's a little interesting. What does Best Game Direction mean? What do people take away from that? This is one where I think Alan Wake 2 is in that conversation. To me, it's probably just between Baldur's Gate and Alan Wake here. Again, you could make an argument for Legend of Zelda. I don't think Spider-Man 2 is going to cut it. I don't think Mario is going to cut it. But I think Alan Wake 2 is an artsy-fartsy ass video game, and people recognize that.
But not too artsy that it blocks a lot of just regular gamers from enjoying the story. The direction is so good, it's able to get that nice line down the middle of satisfying both crowds.
Its game director, Sam Lake, front and center, did all the marketing for the game, did a bunch of interviews for the game, is in the game. His likeness and him, he's an actor in the game. So, there's so much artistic intent and artistic vision and directorial vision behind it that, I think Alan Wake 2 is probably going to take this. I would turn to you in the conversation about Baldur's Gate over Alan Wake and how that would fare out.
Well, you see, the reason why Baldur's Gate 3 still has that conversation behind it is two reasons. One, I do think it's more likely to win Game of the Year. Mm-hmm. But, I feel like, not all the time, certainly not all the time, in past game awards, though, generally Best Game Direction and Game of the Year are the same. There's breakaways from that, but if we were to go back specifically, that's kind of, the same.
What won it last year? Wasn't it last year? It was like Ragnarok won everything, and then Elden Ring won the overall.
It did, yeah. It was something like that last year. Like I said, it's not always the case, but in most past ones, I believe it has. I might be wrong, but the bigger point to make is that with Baldur's Gate 3, as we said before, it was released in early access. They were one of the best studios out there who listened to player feedback, and if you were like me and you played during early access from the moment it came out all the way to release, they were doing update after update, class update, race updates, and small minor fixes, hot fixes, and whatnot. And I do think the direction of that, as you said before, Alan Wake 2's direction is so focused. They had a very clear vision of what they wanted to do with that narrative, and with the visuals, and with the continuation of the Alan Wake back in 2010. But even in light of that, Baldur's Gate 3 was able to build itself into the game it is now, due to how the reception from players, plus the direction of the lead developers to make the game that got as popular as it did. I think that gives it a lot of points as well. But I just I'll hold my exact thoughts off for the predictions episode that we'll be doing on December 3rd, 4th. But
Connor,
both those two are the
find
best.
me the because I'm on the screen right now, but find me the winner of game direction for 2021. Because if it was Deathloop, then that signifies. Because to me, best game direction is usually like the vision of the game, but also the marketing of like, can you get your game director out in front of people, type thing. So like the Neil Druckmanns, the Cory Barlogs, kind of taking this, and I think Sam Lake is in that conversation.
True, it was Deathloop.
It was Deathloop. Yeah, that would kind of solidify. Even though It Takes Two director was out and about, Deathloop had that sort of artistic with Arcane had that sort of artistic backing behind it, much like an Alan Wake 2 does today. So I still think Alan Wake takes best game direction. I think that's the one where they lean and give it to they say, all right, well, let's give Alan Wake something, and they give it to Alan Wake there. Whereas game of the year, I think, is unequivocally Baldur's Gate 3.
And just to kind of somewhat support my argument earlier, we'll go in. You can go back farther, of course, but 2022 was actually Elden Ring in both game direction and game of the year.
Okay,
and
that makes even more sense because the game director of From Software games matters so much with Miyazaki.
And 2020, it was Last of Us Part 2 in both cases.
Neil Druckmann.
So So
19, I'm going to go ahead and guess it was probably Sekiro too, right? Or maybe Resident Evil 2?
No, I don't think it was Sekiro. I'm pretty confident that it was not.
In 2019, it better either be Resident Evil 2. Oh, maybe it was Control.
Oh, really? You think so?
It might have been. It should be Control, Sekiro, or Resident Evil 2. Should be one of those three. Unless whatever you say right here in a second changes my mind.
Yeah, it was game of the year was Sekiro. Best narrative. Where's the
game
fucking
direction?
narrative?
Game direction.
Yeah, I mean directive. Where's the fucking why does this not include?
Should be the second one.
It was not. That's why I was like, what? Okay, let me go to the Game Awards directly. Get winners. Okay, yes. Best directive. It was Death Stranding. So it was different.
Oh, Death Stranding.
See,
Kojima. Come on.
That kind of leads more towards Sam Lake because he's been the guy.
If you can name the director, you're more likely to have that game win. So yeah,
that seems more accurate.
I think game direction is an Alan Wake 2. Best narrative. However, this is going to be an interesting conversation.
Yes.
Alan Wake 2, Remedy. Baldur's Gate 3, Larian. Cyberpunk 2077, Phantom Liberty, CD Projekt Red. Final Fantasy 16, Square Enix. Marvel Spider-Man 2, Insomniac Games. This, I think, again, actually, this is a pretty stiff competition.
It is.
I think this is probably between Alan Wake, Final Fantasy, Spider-Man.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like Spider-Man and Baldur's Gate 3 on the narrative scope of things are so neck and neck. But I do think still, I'm so scared.
I'm so scared Spider-Man's going to have all these nominations, just like in 2018, is going to have all these nominations and not win anything.
Yeah, it could, especially when you brought up the two games, Alan Wake 2 and Final Fantasy 16. 16 was kind of a shoo-in for narrative, but then Alan Wake 2 came out.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's kind of that changed the entire conversation.
Yeah.
Because what a narrative that fucking game is.
Yeah.
When it's a game, like for Final Fantasy 16, I stayed all the way through to get to the narrative because the gameplay kind of got lackluster at a certain point. You dropped off because it still wasn't enough to keep you invested.
Yeah.
Alan Wake 2, it's the same exact thing, but the story, like, I didn't even question the gameplay, partly because the game length of these two are so vastly different. Final Fantasy 16 being way more hours to complete it as opposed to Alan Wake 2. But Alan Wake 2, I couldn't tear myself away from the game at all. There were certain moments from Final Fantasy 16, due to the combat and the length of it combined, I was like, okay, I kind of want to drop it off a little bit, but I really want to see where this story goes. Alan Wake 2 had no such problems. And that's recency bias. It is recency bias.
But like, let's be honest. Like,
yes,
Alan Wake 2 did more with less of its runtime. And,
it did.
And there's no filler. There's no garbage. It's all intentional. It checks every single box of like, we are giving you a good traditional narrative. Well, we're giving you an okay traditional narrative. We're giving you a really good meta narrative. We're getting real artsy fartsy. We're checking all these boxes for the pretentious motherfuckers like me. Whereas Final Fantasy 16 gave you a very traditional story, good, well written, well performed, well acted, but it's bogged down by its gameplay. And there are there are people like me who played Final Fantasy 16, made a certain number of hours in, looked at the road ahead and how many hours we have left, and said, "It's not worth it. Like, I don't care." And Alan Wake doesn't have that problem because Alan Wake is a sub 20-hour game. So you look at it and you go, "Oh yeah, I can handle that." And even in the points where the narrative is losing me, it's weird, it's confusing, I don't understand it, or the gameplay is not awesome. It's a little loose with its dodge mechanic, and I'm getting frustrated at some of these choke points and so forth. You look ahead and you go, "But I'm 5 hours away from the end. Let me go ahead and finish it off."
Tough, like you said, stiff competition.
And also, Marvel Spider-Man 2 giving you the best of both worlds. Great gameplay, which carries you through a really good story. Traditional, yes, but and a little generic, yes, but still really, really good. Super well acted, super emotional, super impactful. I'd be lying if I wasn't, I got a little teary-eyed in the final act of Spider-Man 2. Alan Wake didn't do that for me. Final Fantasy, I don't think would have done it for me. Even, though I didn't finish it, just knowing where that narrative probably was going, I don't think it was going to hit me on that level. Granted, I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, so there's a little bit of buy-in for me on that. But I think it's just as emotional and it works just as well on its own, because I am usually able to be able to separate my fandom from the product given to me.
I'm curious to know what you think happens. To know what you think happens in Final Fantasy 16 story.
Well, I know of some character deaths, and it was like traditional, like the setup. Like, I've got a good idea of where that setup was going.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
There's a couple of questions I have concerning the brother character, but I feel like I have a pretty good idea where that was going.
I just because I have to say it, we didn't say a single bit because we haven't played it about Cyberpunk. Heard it was great story-wise. I just don't think it stacks up to the rest of them based off public perception.
Yeah, it's one of those, and it's just an expansion. I don't think it got enough votes. But good on CD Projekt Red for sticking with it, turning it around, and really having a bit of a comeback year here in 2023 with Cyberpunk 2077. Enough to the point to where all three of us go, you, me, and Phil being the three, go, should we load up some Cyberpunk 2077? Nah, we don't have time. But we would if we could.
Yeah, I would.
We gotta start putting some pedal to the metal here, Connor, and just kind of jumping through a couple of things. Best art direction: Alan Wake 2, Hi-Fi Rush, Lies of P, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. I'm gonna say it right now: Tears of the Kingdom should not be in this list. The other four
great.
The other four are valid. If I were to pick one, that's hard.
While you're thinking about it,
yeah.
First of all, Breath of the Wild. I mean, Tears of the Kingdom. It's good being on there. It's got hot twinkling.
It's the exact same fucking art style as the last game. Who cares?
And the art style was amazing. What do you want, huh?
Like
that goes. I know this leads into my previous criticism about not winning, not being deserving of the game of the year.
What you were just saying.
I know. But art direction's a different thing. Art direction's just a visual thing. You can appreciate visuals regardless of how much time has passed in between different things. That being said, I do think it deserves to be Hi-Fi Rush. I think that feeling of, oh, you're playing that game that you played in your childhood, on your PS2, or those cartoons that you watched on Saturday mornings. It evokes that kind of imagery. And as good as Alan Wake 2 can be at times, and it gets very, very good looking, I think the nostalgia is just kind of hard not to like, especially with how expressive the characters in Hi-Fi Rush are, and the design of the characters themselves is just, everyone pops. Everyone has like they have visual designs that cue you into what kind of character they're like. Nice. And that's the mark of a good art direction.
You know what? I think I agree with you. Talk to me about Lies of P, though. Why is Lies of P not getting it for you?
Oh, it's
because what I saw was awesome.
Of course, it's awesome. The game is awesome. It's just it's kind of the not criticism. It's the issue that we're going to find in this entire Game of the Year awards is it's one of the best years in gaming in recent years. And whereas Lies of P would be a more standout game in other years compared to Hi-Fi Rush, compared to Alan Wake 2. It would be like, I would, in my mind, put third runner-up. I would like it to win an award because, this is Round 8 Studio. I believe it's their first game. Or NeoWiz. One of those two, NeoWiz or Round 8 is their first game. And they knocked it out of the park with it. and it deserves the respect that
Yeah.
it's understandably gotten. But as far as art direction goes, there's just better competitors.
I think also like we want to give Hi-Fi Rush something, and I think Hi-Fi Rush impressed in the art category, and I think that's a good place for it to win. Me personally, I vibe better with Alan Wake 2, but
No, yeah.
I respect the Hi-Fi Rush pick. Best score in music for outstanding music, inclusive of score, original song, and or licensed soundtrack. Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Final Fantasy 16, Hi-Fi Rush, and The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. This one's tricky. I think it's a three-way rush. A lot of these are three-way races between Alan Wake 2, Hi-Fi Rush, and probably Final Fantasy 16.
Yes. Yeah, it's not 16's music is fantastic.
I think from there, Alan Wake and Hi-Fi Rush have such a focus on music.
They do. The case with the reason why I cast doubt on Hi-Fi Rush is it is built around music, but the music itself it is good. It's just not as grand or as amazing.
Level, right?
It's not next level. No, it's not. Whereas Final Fantasy 16, it's amazing. I should mention, I mentioned this to you before when we first looked at the list. That composer wrote this score when he was dealing with cancer. And it's as amazing as it is. I mean, to push through that kind of thing and deliver a soundtrack that's as good as it is, and I think it actually has the best individual soundtrack this year with Find the Flame, the main overall theme of Final Fantasy 16. Makes it a contender, but Alan Wake 2, if you play that game, you realize
Alan Wake, man.
Good.
I'm really hoping. Alan Wake 2 did so many impressive things with music, man. Even past looking past the ending every chapter with a new song type thing. Look past that, the scenario music and all that was really, really good.
The reason why you're right, it gives a lot more credence to deserving the win is the best, like some of the best moments in the game are either accompanied by music or music focused.
Yeah. And
I think that just kind of, it
also, there's a moment, no spoilers. Yes. There's a moment in Alan Wake 2. About 15 minutes long. Oh, you're right. 2 moments. I'm thinking about the first one, but the second one's dope too.
Yes.
That first one, it's like 15, 20 minutes long, and it's awesome. It's awesome. I think Alan Wake 2 probably has it, but I wouldn't be surprised if FF16 or Hi-Fi Rush takes it either. Audio design, I'm going to talk about this one really quickly. Alan Wake 2, Dead Space, Hi-Fi Rush, Marvel Spider-Man 2, Resident Evil 4. It's probably going to go to Alan Wake 2, maybe even Hi-Fi Rush, maybe even Resident Evil 4. I think audio design this year, survival horror ran the gambit between Alan Wake, Dead Space, and Resident Evil 4. I talked about it in my review. Dead Space has the best audio design of any game I've played this year, and one of the best audio designs of any game ever. I think the only other one that comes close is Last of Us Part 2. Again, survival horror, esque game. Not really, but, still there. But Dead Space did a lot of really cool stuff with audio design, man, and it really, really deserves it. I don't think it's going to get it, but spoilers for my predictions, for the predictions episode, Dead Space has my vote. Anybody who plays Dead Space Remake knows what the fuck happened with audio in that game. It was next level awesome.
And as someone that didn't play the remake, I think that Hi-Fi Rush deserves it because it is one of the greatest audio design achievements in all of gaming history.
It was fine.
Dude, it was amazing. The entire gameplay. I mean, obviously you have rhythm games. Their entire shtick is you press the button in accordance to the beat when it wants you to press it. I don't play rhythm games, if you could tell. But Hi-Fi Rush, its entire world has the smallest detail that is in sync with the beat that is used to do every single bit of combat that you engage in that game. It is, intrinsic to the world of Hi-Fi Rush and intrinsic to the combat system. I think very few games have ever been able to integrate audio design into a game as much as Hi-Fi Rush was able to do. And part of that's because of technology, and part of it's because it just made the game flow so much better. Like, it is the core of the flow of the game, which it really emphasizes of hitting those attacks at the moment that your weapon is making contact. Even the button presses that you do throughout the game are in sync with the beat. It's amazing.
Go play Dead Space. Dead Space did insane things with the environment. The intensity director alone has leveled up survival horror as a genre in ways that I don't think anybody's going to like. That is a whoa, we are doing great. Like, that is game changing for what survival horror can do in the medium of video games. The Intensity Director is one of the best things ever.
As much as I would like to contest it, I can't because I haven't played it.
Go play it, man. It's good. It's right up your fucking alley, too.
The problem is, I know I would. The problem
I know
is
you just played it like 2 years ago or whatever the fuck.
No, not even 2 years ago. Like less than a year ago before the game came out.
Yeah, but it's been 2 years since then, right?
No, not at all. It was recent. It was recent by the time Dead Space Remake came out, and then other games came out, and it was kind of just lost in that.
Go play it, man. It really is. It's special. It really is.
I really want to because I agree with you. It probably is. I just have so many other games I need to prioritize.
Yeah.
It's my biggest sadness of this year.
Yeah,
that I can't play Dead Space.
Dead Space Remake was really special, man.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite games of the year, and I think it's my favorite remake.
With Resident Evil 4 remake being out the same exact year, you say that is the best remake when Resident Evil 4 remake was the best
let me qualify that. Let me qualify.
Survival Wars of all time was.
Shut the fuck up with your fucking nerdy ass shit. Resident Evil 2 remake is one of my favorite video games of all time. Dead Space remake is not. So like that one, yeah. But I never played the original Resident Evil 2. I've played the original Dead Space. I've played the original Final Fantasy 7. I've played the original Resident Evil 4. Dead Space remake is like just for like direct 1-to-1 comparison, the best remake I've ever played. Best performance. After this one, we're going to start jumping around and just hitting the ones we want to hit. Best performance awarded to an individual for voiceover, acting, motion, and/or performance capture. We have Ben Starr for Final Fantasy 16, Cameron Monaghan for Star Wars Jedi Survivor, Idris Elba, Cyberpunk 2077, Phantom Liberty, Melanie LeBird, Alan Wake 2, Neil Newbin, Baldur's Gate 3, Yuri Lowenthal, Marvel's Spider-Man 2. This one's tricky for me again. There was quite a few great performances this year. I want to give a shout out to Melanie LeBird. Alan Wake 2 played Saga Anderson. She did a great job in Alan Wake 2. One of my favorite performances of the year. My personal one that I would like to see is Yuri Lowenthal because that was awesome. It was really awesome, and I can't say anything past that without giving spoilers away. But Yuri went there, man. Yuri was great.
He gets those inches of venom in him, and he starts going off the mouth, huh?
Let's talk about that. The symbiote suit so quickly can turn your actor corny, and Yuri wasn't corny. You bought it. You were like, oh man, Yuri's going there because so quickly Peter turns edgy with the symbiote. So quickly that happens, and Yuri didn't do that. Yuri sold it, man. He was great. Connor, where are you sitting here?
This is a really hard. It ultimately is Ben Starr and Neil Newbin. Asterion in Baldur's Gate 3 just has some of the best, funniest deliveries in the game. There's certain moments that really pick out to me. Ben Starr, he kind of helped carry that narrative with his voice acting. And it helps that he was kind of, out of all of these guys, the most social media active. And people saw his face the most.
Yeah.
So in addition to the performance, he has a very high chance of getting it. Cameron Monaghan, he did good. Idris Elba, from what I heard, he did really good. But I feel like there were other performances that could have gotten a prioritization over those two. I agree. From what I understand, Idris Elba, he's there. Like as good as he probably did, he's there because he's a big name actor. If he wasn't, he wouldn't have probably gotten this nomination.
I mean, I hear he did an excellent job in Cyberpunk.
Oh yeah, I did too.
Probably still deserving of the award. But let's not pretend like the Hollywood bias allowed him to kind of be put here. Alongside it. Cameron, I think, did a really good job with what he was given. I just think Cal Kestis is a bland-ass character, and Cameron's doing the best he can with it.
Yes.
But
great actor.
Really good actor. His other stuff is awesome. Like, I've seen clips of him in what's that show he's known for, where he plays the gay dude?
No. God damn it.
I know. What the fuck is it? I can't think of it right now. You can look up the IMDb right now, Connor, if you can. I'm with you. This is probably going to go to either Ben Starr or Neil Newbern. Probably Ben Starr, just because he was in front and had such publicity around everything. And he did a good job.
Oh, he did a great job, yeah.
Also, people are just impressed with his tone in his voice. Shameless, yes. Cameron in Shameless is fucking awesome. Cameron's really talented. I don't think the Jedi series is giving him the range that he deserves in it. But I will say, especially near the end of Survivor, quite interesting. Quite interesting. They've laid the groundwork for the next game to be interesting for Cal Kestis. It's just that it should have been this game that he was interesting.
Yes.
And it wasn't. So, I mean, even then, maybe not. But again, Cameron did a good job. Idris, I'm sure, did a good job. Melanie and Yuri fucking killed it, in my opinion. Ben Starr, probably going to take it. Connor, let's jump around. Where are we going next? I'll give you best ongoing, best community, best indie, best debut indie. Let me talk about best independent game, actually.
Yeah.
Because this one created a bit of a conversation online that I kind of lean into. So best independent game for outstanding creative and technical achievement in a game made outside the traditional publisher system. Cocoon, Dave the Diver, Dredge, Sea of Stars, Viewfinder. And the reason I want to bring this up is Dave the Diver was inside the traditional publisher system. Like they are owned by a very big publisher. So like they are not an independent game. Now you can just be like, oh, but indie vibes. Sure. At that rate, throw Hi-Fi Rush in here. But that feels gross, doesn't it? So it's just like, what are we doing here? Anyways, I don't know what's going to hit it there. That's all I just really wanted to talk about there. Connor, I know you haven't played any of those games, so you have no idea what's going on over there.
Only one of them.
What did you play?
Which I think would win. Sea of Stars.
Oh, yes. Sea of Stars.
Yeah.
I don't know. Cocoon could take it.
Fair enough.
Or Dave the Diver. Dave the Diver made a big impact this year.
What comes next, Tavin?
Connor, let's jump to best action game.
I agree. All right. I solemnly swear that I am a From Software shill. Deserves it. I'll say right now. Now, with that being said, on its face, Armored Core 6, it was able to take a series that has a more niche audience with its gameplay, with its storytelling elements, and reach that bigger audience, partly due to From Software, but partly due to the fact that it's just so solid with all of the customization you have available to the mechs that you can do. I mean, you yourself, how many hours you spend making your particular mech?
Oh, I spent like 4 hours. I spent one night like 4 hours just making a mech, just coloring it and designing it. Yeah,
and that level of like customization, and it work with the combat of the game, I think trumps all the other ones here.
Yeah, the systems are so good.
Yeah,
the systems are so good. I'm gonna give a shout out to Ghost Runner 2. I heard great things about Ghost Runner 2.
I have as well. Yes,
I heard good things about Remnant 2. But yeah, I think Armored Core is gonna take it. No bars held. Like it's an easy Armored Core win there, which is fine because I think Armored Core only got like two or three nominations. So the fact that they're getting anything here is great. I think Armored Core is one of the best games of the year. And while I don't think Game of the Year worthy like the last two nominations from Software have been, I think it's by far one of the best games of the year, and I'm glad it's getting its recognition here. Best action adventure. We have Alan Wake 2, Marvel Spider-Man 2, Resident Evil 4, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I think this is where Marvel Spider-Man 2 takes it.
The only one I don't think should be on this list at all is Alan Wake 2. The puzzles were good, but they weren't so amazing, and the traversal, it was just not really all that special.
To me, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is not an action adventure game. It's an adventure game, but it's not an action adventure game. Whereas the other four are. But
like by that standard, is Resident Evil 4 really an adventure game? It's a one linear.
Absolutely, it is.
Go along this path and don't do anything else. Like at least with the Legend of Zelda, you can see it has exploratory.
There's some exploratory stuff in Resident Evil 4, and also like when you think action adventure, you're thinking of that single player narrative based, like probably third person, just kind of set piece focused game. And Resident Evil 4 absolutely checks those boxes.
That adventure thing just doesn't do it for me. It's kind of like in the same way. You can make an argument that Zelda kind of cancels out the action segment of this category. I think those two are kind of weird in their placement of this list.
I disagree for Resident Evil 4, but fair. Best RPG? This is a tricky one, too. Oh, this one pisses me off, too.
You know what I'm going to say, Tavin.
This one pisses me off, too. All right, well,
fuck popularity, fuck whatever Bethesda game is making. Starfield is a bland game. Anybody that likes it, feel free to like it as much as you want. It does nothing interesting at all. It's actually a perfect case example. If you're gonna do a outer space type game and not have alien races, you better have something good to replace it, because it felt like, wow, I get to see a random thing crawling on the ground that I get to shoot and kill super easy. generic RPG elements where you say the same exact things you can expect to say in a Bethesda game, all while a game that I barely played overall, Star Ocean Second Story R, is leagues, and I mean leagues above Starfield. Everything else absolutely deserves to be here. Popularity is so in the moment,
Everything
and it's
else
going to go
deserves
away.
to
It's
be
going to
here?
go away. Everything else deserves to be here. As far as
Final
RPG,
Fantasy 16 deserves to be here.
fair enough. Okay, but at least that's a good game at its core. Starfield is an okay game. It's a fine game. It's a serviceable game that only is carried on its own, its developers' back. If it was not made by Bethesda, it would have been like, oh, I forget it. And I know what you're gonna say, Tavin. It made the biggest splash this year. It's one of the most impactful games. It was the most popular content. Did you make back game? That works for idiots, for fucking dumbasses who are so in the moment, they don't realize this game is going to be... First of all, it hasn't even been talked about past its release. Who talks about Starfield now? Who talks about it?
I still see some stuff. Some stuff still pops up for me.
And what are they saying? I stacked all these books together.
They're
and
usually
the
critical of it. They're usually quite critical
dumb.
of it. Yeah.
It's so dumb. The combat, bland. The world, bland. The characters, bland.
Connor, I'm going to interject. I'm going to inject here. Your opinion, noted, granted, fine. I have not personally played Starfield, so I cannot contribute to that conversation. Starfield is some people's game of the year.
Stupid people's.
Some people's game of the year.
Mm-hmm.
From what I hear, the way that they tackle New Game Plus and having all of that work narratively is super, super interesting. From what I'm hearing, that's super cool and super interesting. And I think deserving of a nod in this case. On top of the fact it's one of the biggest RPGs of the year. It's one of the biggest games of the year. It's Bethesda Softworks' biggest game ever.
Worst game in recent years. Barring Fallout 76.
I was going to say Fallout 76 right there, dog.
It's worse.
Right there. And I think some people would even make an argument that some people, again, Connor, not me, this is what I'm gathering from the conversation happening online, some people would say this game is better than Fallout 4.
Sure. People who I like big open things, and then that means they're good. Stupid.
All of that said, guys, Final Fantasy 16 is not an RPG. It's only in this list because it has the Final Fantasy name. That's not an RPG. It's not.
True. And all of this is useless because it's going to be Baldur's Gate 3.
It's going to be Baldur's Gate 3.
No.
I'm going to say it right now. Should be Sea of Stars.
No, it should be Baldur's Gate 3.
I'm going to say it. Should be Sea of Stars.
No. RPG mechanics, not so amazing in Sea of Stars.
Connor, best fighting game.
All right. It's between two. We all know it is.
I mean, it's between the big two, but let's go ahead and go through it. God of Rock, Mortal Kombat 1, Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl 2, Pocket Bravery, Street Fighter 6. I don't know what Pocket Bravery or God of Rock are. I think it's, as we already said, it's very obviously between Street Fighter 6 and Mortal Kombat 1. My vote is Street Fighter 6. Even from an outsider's perspective, it seemed like Street Fighter 6 made a bigger splash this year, was more impressive this year, and did cooler things this year. Mortal Kombat 1, people still like it. It's a great Mortal Kombat game, but I think Street Fighter 6 did more. And also, let's talk about, accessibility. Street Fighter 6 did a pretty good job of being accessible for new players. I hear Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2 is a lot of fun. I just don't think it has the juice.
No, it does not. The only reason I think that Mortal Kombat 1 would win is due to the marketing of Homelander, of Omni-Man, bringing people to say, like, this is the best game, because it brings eyes. It only brings eyes, but I have issue with Mortal Kombat games.
Mortal Kombat is the fighting game franchise. It's the fighting game franchise.
Unfortunately, I think that's a large in part due to the fact that it's an American fighting game, and America has one of the highest populations of gamers in the world, at least in the past. Certainly they did, and I think that carries it on more than the actual gameplay mechanics of Mortal Kombat, which, listen to the realms. I get it. You're you're different from all of the more Japanese-focused fighting games. Stop with the dumbass notation system that you use. It's just stop trying to be different. Only Tekken can do that. You can't do that. This is bias, by the way.
I don't know what this means. So yeah, you're speaking gibberish to me, Connor. We've only got a little bit left here. Let's just cherry pick one or two here. I'm gonna give you either best family, best multiplayer, or best adaptation.
Well, best multiplayer for me at least.
Best multiplayer. Let's look at it.
Difficult. Well, kind of. Yeah, difficult.
Best multiplayer for outstanding online multiplayer gameplay and design, including co-op and massively multiplayer experiences irrespective of game genre or platform. We have Baldur's Gate 3, Diablo 4, Party Animals, Street Fighter 6, Super Mario Bros. Wonder. I could see an argument for every single one of these games.
Well, Tavin, that's not true entirely. The only one that doesn't deserve to win is Diablo 4.
I
Partly
thought you were
because
about to say Wonder, and I was about to be like, Connor, you
no,
sound
no.
like an idiot. Like,
No, I will not say that. But
Diablo
the reason
4.
I say Diablo 4 for two reasons. First of all, Blizzard sucks cock. Fuck them. But the more reasonable reason is I've heard countless people, Diablo fans, non-Diablo fans, critics, just shit on Diablo 4. The way they've done in-game purchases, the way they've done the game itself. Obviously it's
Diablo
gotten
4
good
is a
reviews.
good game, first of all.
It's gotten
Hold
good
on.
reviews. And I know core, it's good game. But like my
People just
perception
didn't
of
like
it
the
is-
season thing that happened.
yeah. And when you have that much like bad press against it, I don't think in the eyes of gamers or even in the eyes of critics at that point, it's going to win over the rest of these games, which, by all accounts had just, heavier emphasis not only on multiplayer. Well, one of the exceptions being Baldur's Gate 3, which even though it didn't have as much of an emphasis on multiplayer, it had one of the best multiplayer systems, being able to do a mainline campaign with only player characters, which kind of hard to do that. I don't think any other game has been able to do that. It is very impressive. And have them do different things at the same exact time.
I don't even understand how it works. As someone who has not been able to experience it, I don't get it, but like that's impressive. That's cool.
Literally, a quick explanation. Every player just dropped into the world, and that's it. They can go off and do whatever they want.
That's nuts.
I got into a combat encounter.
If you run off and go and complete a storyline, does that storyline happen for everybody else? So like if I go and talk to that character, like what happens if I then go talk to that character?
I will say, Tavin, regardless of what you do, if you do that, you'll get in a combat encounter and you will die. Maybe there's a way to get around it, but I went to a combat encounter away from everyone else. Literally didn't even have a chance in hell to win.
Because
I got demolished. Yeah, so I think it kind of like I don't know what would happen.
You all to play together.
It does, yeah. I just don't see an area where the gameplay mechanics would allow you to progress without everyone being there.
So is it just whoever talks to that NPC first gets to make the narrative choices, though?
Yeah, but you can join in and see the narrative conversation go on, and then you can vote for like choose this dialogue option, choose this.
But the vote doesn't mean anything. It's just whoever started that conversation gets to make the choice. Okay.
Yes.
All right. I think it's probably Baldur's Gate 3. I would personally rather it be something like Party Animals, or even Street Fighter 6.
Street Fighter 6 is built on having that online player base. Yeah, always has been. Mm-hmm.
Let's jump to. Let's do best adaptation. This one probably pretty easy, but we have nominated Castlevania Nocturne, Gran Turismo, The Last of Us, Super Mario Brothers movie, and Twisted Metal. I mean, this is a fight between The Last of Us and Super Mario Brothers, and I think probably The Last of Us takes it easily.
I don't. Super Mario Bros. Has gained that traction. Obviously, this is
a lot of Mario.
Now the critics clearly, who as you said before, dominate the voting of this Game Awards, would go for The Last of Us, easy. But Super Mario is Super Mario. It made the biggest splash, so it's really a debate of how they.
I mean, Mario's a good movie.
How they vote on these things.
Like it's good. It's not a great movie by any means. It's got its shortcomings for sure. It's a kids movie first and foremost. It's not the most deep or interesting plot, but it's a good movie. It's solid. Even like my mom walked out of the Mario movie and was like, I had a good time. It was fine. It was good. Last of Us, I think, did tap into everybody else. Last of Us brought people to tears. Last of Us did hit mainstream on a level that it hasn't before, which is crazy because there's people who don't play video games and, people who only watch the new and latest and greatest HBO shows, which The Last of Us was. And it hit. It hit in a big way. And it was also awesome. So it kind of just hit in every category. It had the mainstream appeal. It had the emotional depth. The quality was there. The act, it was just a flawless TV show. And so yeah, I think The Last of Us takes it pretty easily here.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Respect to Castlevania though. I heard great things about Castlevania.
I did not.
Connor, let's end this off with most anticipated game.
Yeah.
Most anticipated game.
Great. Well, all but one great choice.
We've got here Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Hades 2, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, Star Wars Outlaws, and Tekken 8. Yeah, the only game that doesn't look awesome to me here is Star Wars Outlaws.
Yeah.
And you can look at our reaction for all of that. I thought Star Wars Outlaws looks generic as shit and boring as hell. But that's me, personally. It did impress some people. I understand why it's nominated. It is a Star Wars game, so it's going to bring in numbers. But that game looks boring as fuck. Tekken 8, cool, but it's a fighting game. It's niche. It's going to get dismissed because of that. So now you look at Final Fantasy, Hades, and Like a Dragon. Yakuza and Like a Dragon have had a great look the last couple of years, but I still don't think it's on that mainstream gamer level like Final Fantasy and Hades is, and even then I think Final Fantasy takes the cake here. Also, it's the soonest to come. Like, we have a date, we have trailers, they're ramping up the marketing for, excuse me, that beer. They're ramping up the marketing for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It's a legacy game, XYZ number of reasons. I'm as excited for Hades 2 as anybody else, but I don't expect that game to come out anytime soon. It's going to do its early access thing. I'm going to wait for its official launch to touch it. And then Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is in February?
Yes.
Yeah, February.
Yes, it should be.
29th, I want to say, something like that. Does that sound right to you, Connor?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Something like that. So yeah, I think it's Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Connor, how excited are you for fucking Final Fantasy VII Rebirth?
Oh, I'm
right
so
now,
goddamn
excited.
I'm edging. Which, you know, as excited as I am for that, I brought this up. The reveal trailer, or the release date announced trailer for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth has 1 million views. 1 million views also for the first look trailer. For the Summer Game Fest 2023 trailer, 2 million views. Wow. This is all on YouTube, of course. From Supergiant themselves, the Hades 2 reveal trailer, 5.4 million. And I think that kind of... yes, I think that as good as 7 Remake is for me and for many other gamers, Hades has that appeal. That broad appeal.
Oh, okay. I didn't understand how big Hades was.
Oh, it's so big, dude. I've listened to people who aren't known for video games, don't play video games to my knowledge, talk about Hades.
But it's also like Hades 2 is just so far away.
It probably is, yeah. It's probably going to go into early access next year.
I'm excited for next year. Next year's going to be fun.
I am too.
I think this year's going to be a bigger banger year, but like next year, I think we're going to get some good games next year.
Yeah.
Prince of Persia, where you at, man? You know what I'm saying? Anyways,
Mm-hmm.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be it for the conversation about the Game Awards and for your episode of the Two Penny Gamescast. Make sure you like, subscribe, and follow us on all social media platforms down in the description below. Connor, don't shake your head. We want people to do these things. This is how we grow. This is how we eventually get money by doing this, Connor. Come on, man. Yeah, you know what you did. You know what you did. Until next time, have a great time. Make sure you leave comments down below of conversations you'd like us to have on the podcast, and we will see you next time. Connor, say goodbye to the people.
Stay steady.